Our podcast is a part of the World Podcast Network, now with over 1,000 podcasts. Visit the World Podcast Network at worldpodcast.network to listen to podcasts in over 12 genres. Come vote our podcast episodes up and help us rise on the leaderboard. If you have a podcast of your own, you can join for free. Welcome to Reality Tea Times 2, the podcast where we discuss all the trash reality TV we love to hate. I'm Tanika, and today we are going to be discussing Forbidden Love. We're going to be kind of just plowing through the Forbidden Love. There are 3 episodes that we're going to talk about. What I'm planning to do is to probably do 2 in 1 and then do the finale in its own episode. Just kind of depends on time. We'll see how it goes. But that's kind of the plan. I will mention at the end if maybe that's being changed up a little bit, but we'll see how it goes. But let's go into hot goss. So we have quite a bit that we're going to spread out throughout the episodes. So there's going to be a lot that we're going to be discussing with respect to Bachelorette. There's been a lot that's kind of come out in the last few days since the finale last week that we're going to kind of be talking about. So first thing is Aaron has apparently backtracked his quote-unquote victory lap, which we will talk about, following Jen and Devin's split. He said, quote, "I just wanted to talk about The Bachelorette really quick. For the first and probably last," this, by the way, was on an Instagram video that he posted on September 4th. "For the first and probably last time ever, because it's in the past and doesn't affect me anymore. However, enough of you commented on my little quote-unquote victory lap reel today saying how insensitive and not the time it was." Yeah. Did you have to be told that? You're a grown-ass man. You need that book, my guy. Aaron admitted that he agrees with his fans, saying, quote, "I just wanted to say that was for me, how misunderstood and judged I was pretty much the entire time I was on the show for being involved with drama and nobody really understanding my side of anything because it wasn't shown. It felt vindicating how everything played out." Yeah, but there's still a way for you to do the "I told you so" without being insensitive. You didn't do that. Aaron noted that he shouldn't kick someone when they are down or drag them through the mud, even if it makes me look better. He added, "That wasn't my intention, nor will I do that." He's like, "I tried to warn everybody how bad this dude was when all I had to do was shut up and let him do it himself." That's true too. In the clip, Aaron lip-synced to audio from SpongeBob SquarePants, which said, quote, "What am I getting so worked up about? I'm sure that by tomorrow this whole ugly mess will be a funny memory." The audio then cut to a newscaster who said, quote, "Our top story tonight." Aaron smiled at the camera while lifting his hands up in the air. He said, "I really tried to bite my tongue. Jen, from all of us men, we're sorry. You truly deserved better." So the only thing that you said that was any good. After apologizing for his video hours later, Aaron sent a message to Jen while poking fun at fellow season contestant Sam, infamous catchphrase, saying, quote, "In keeping the main thing, I just want to address you, Jen, and tell you how sincerely sorry I am that you went through that. And that's how the season ended. Watching you on stage, essentially all alone up there, let's be real, that is true. Having to reprocess and relive those emotions again. I know how strong of a person you are, but how difficult that must have been in the moment." Aaron noted that Jen handled herself well, adding that he's rooting for you, like I know you're rooting for all of us. That is just a little speed bump in your journey, and down the road, you're going to find everything you're looking for. He said, actually, no, that's the end of that. That's the end of the article for Aaron. But let's move on to Charity and Kat apparently have some thoughts and feelings towards what happened with Devin. Charity and Kat were apparently on a podcast recently, and this is kind of what they said. So, Charity said, I have no tolerance for men who act like that, who don't even give just an ounce of empathy or respect. And this was on I think it was at their New York City studio on Friday, September 6th. Uh, and this was talking about their new podcast that's coming. It's called Tap In. So if you're interested, that's coming or already is here. Who knows? Charity went on to say, quote, I don't have full context and know everything in regards to their relationship, but honestly, how that entire finale played out, I feel so sorry for Jen, and I just hope that she takes this time now to heal from that, because that's traumatizing. I had a great ending, and my season was still traumatizing. The way that was played out was just wrong. Citing her own background as a therapist, Charity, who is still engaged to her winner, Dawn, says she saw little moments of gaslighting and manipulation from Devin, absolutely. Noting that he was, quote, someone who we saw profess his love on national television every single week prior to the finale, acknowledging that it's hard to have the full story because of editing. She believes Devin showed it all during the live finale. Saying, quote, how he sat on that couch, this girl was crying her eyes out, and there's not an ounce of comfort, there's no empathy. So that was really hard for me, especially knowing that for me in my past, dealing with people who had similar characteristics, that was scary. I'm like, is this ego? Is it pride? What is it? Maybe all of the above. Kat, for her part, couldn't help but compare Devin to her ex, John Henry. She said, quote, I experienced something almost identical to that, so it was emotional for my family and I to watch. Broken up over the phone out of nowhere, having to watch our engagement and be so confused because we had broken up maybe 2 weeks before the engagement aired. And I think that was kind of where they were at with their timeline too. And it just shows that men are so unwilling to take the time to understand themselves, and their emotion comes off so unempathetic to the other partner. Whether it's intentional or not, do the work so that way you're not hurting people. Both of you guys have lived enough experience to have done the work. Very well said by Kat. Kat noted that it's a risk to go on the show, but wants men on The Bachelorette to step up, saying, quote, they don't know what they want. They talk out of their, ass, and it's at the expense of someone else's feelings. She's also said, sorry, I can't. I would say, quote, I'm done being your collateral damage, as she should be too. It's what we sign up for. It's a risk that we take, but it's just getting worse and worse, like men's emotional availability. Going on to say, I know all the thoughts are going through her head, like, did you even like me? Were you even here for it? Is this what you wanted all along? Those are all of the intrusive thoughts that come out, and it's so valid because we've all experienced it in some way, especially if it's someone that he bluntly said he thought he wanted to spend his life with. If you're gonna come this way, absolutely come correct. I've never met that man, Charity said. Never went out with that man. They're like, oh, Devin's probably filming this TikTok. I'm like, make it make sense. The formula is incorrect. So, yeah, that's basically that. I think the only other piece of hot gossip I'm going to mention today, again, still Bachelorette related, like I said, is going to be quite a bit with the Bachelor stuff right now, is because there is so much coming that I would have just included in the last episode, but I saw a lot of this after the fact. So Jen was on a podcast. She was on the Bachelor Happy Hour and on September 9th, and this is what she has to say. Now, when I look back on things, I'm like, there were so many key moments I should have taken note of, and I didn't. The day after we got engaged, the first thing he asked the producers was, "How long do people stay together?" What in the Lord? And she says, she was kind of like, "You're already anticipating that we're breaking up?" While Jen said she didn't think much of Devin's question at the time, she admitted, I mean, I would have, that she now believes it was really weird to ask producers about the timeline of past Bachelor Nation couples. Why would you ask that? Prior to the split, Jen explained that she and Devin spent time together in the Bachelor franchise's signature happy couple retreat. So that's what she was saying, because I've never heard this term before. So that makes sense. Where the pair can be in private off camera before the relationship is revealed on the show, and things were not good. We were fighting, not making any compromises, and it was just bad. He basically said, "I'm not happy anymore. Some days I wake up and I just don't feel it. Some days I wake up and I just don't love you." That is a horrible thing to say to somebody. Jen said she reassured Devin that they could get through this, while he suggested that they pursue couples counseling. When Devin ended their relationship days later, Jen claimed he backtracked his plans to work on mending their relationship. There will be more on that the next episode. When Jen called him out on his change of plans, quote, he was like, "You're right. I lied. I don't want to go to couples counseling. I don't want to work on this." The morning of their breakup, Jen recalled FaceTiming Devin and thinking things were normal. He then went to watch an episode of The Bachelorette with his family and sent her a cryptic text after the show. He said, "Let's talk tomorrow. This is a conversation we will have tomorrow, the happy couple." I was like, I don't like what that means. Just call me now. Let's talk about it. And Jen said, a 2-minute phone call. This was that night. He was like, "I don't feel this anymore. I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. It's not working." Jen said she felt very blindsided and was sobbing when he called. I was like, do I beg? Do I not? In the aftermath of their split, footage of Devin with a mystery woman in New York circulated the internet. According to Jen, the woman is someone from Devin's past. She said, "To my knowledge, it's one of his ex-girlfriends," Jen alleged, adding that the interaction occurred 2 weeks before AFR. While she and Devin were broken up at the time, Jen thought there was hope for reconciliation. She said, quote, "I have been getting a lot of DMs and texts about what he had been doing in the past month. There are rumors he was at a bar with this girl, making out with her 3 weeks before AFR. Let's just say 2 weeks after they probably broke up. Somebody sent me a photo of him and her together at the airport flying to New York, probably the same time that he was going to the club with Jeremy." While Jen said she isn't sure whether Devin had been communicating with his ex the entire relationship, she broke down the timeline of what she knows, saying, quote, "He goes missing for some days at a time. Immediately after the show, he's detached, not giving an effort. He doesn't want to see me. And then now there's this girl coming out and they're flying together to New York and she's an ex-girlfriend." Adding that she received a DM warning her of the girl. Those are the facts. While Devin may have rekindled a romance with one of his exes, Jen alleged that other people from his past have reached out to her, saying, quote, "I've had so many exes reach out to me now, being like, you dodged a bullet." This was during part 2 of this episode that happened on September 10th, so just 2 days ago. "The pictures of him with this girl, now I have the closure I need." So that's basically that. There will be more. But, or is it a part of this? Sorry, because they're all from the same, like, thing. So I'm just trying to make sure that I've caught everything. Yeah, I think I've caught everything. So yeah, we will talk about more in another episode. There's so much more. Don't you worry, because we're going to hear from Maria and we are going to hear from Devin some more, because he just has to make sure everybody doesn't hate him. But that ship has very much sailed, my guy. So that's that for now. And let's get into the reason that we are here. Forbidden Love, Season 1, Episode 6. How deep is your love? How deep is your love? I really need to learn. Okay, I'm going to stop because I can keep going, but I'm not going to. If you don't know what song that is or who that's from, you might be too young for this podcast. So let's continue with Elmer and Lindsay. So we see them walking to the parents' house, but of course the cameras cannot follow as that is seen as vanity, so they have to stay behind. But we do see them coming back about an hour later, and they say, one brother answered the door, and then two brothers came, and then a sister showed up. And by the end of that, they were surrounded by 6 different people. And all his family, obviously, so I guess they were maybe all his siblings, I'm not sure. And uh, they did not get to, hold on, but, oh, sorry. Cool. They did get to be let in, but she said it was kind of like more of like a garage type area, so they were like inside the house itself, I guess. They were just inside like an enclosure of some sort. And Elmer did tell them that Lindsay was pregnant, but there was kind of no response to that. Um, and he did not get to see his parents. They were told that the parents were not there. I think they were. But anyway, he said, just for a minute, I kind of wish that Lindsay was Amish. Maybe they could have stayed behind and all that, right? And they're kind of at the point where they can kind of maybe plant those seeds to have some sort of relationship with them, mend those fences kind of situation. But I guess we will see how that turns out. Later on, she says, things have been getting worse with him since seeing his family. He hasn't been taking care of himself, hasn't been brushing his teeth, washing his hands after himself, picking up after himself, like hasn't been doing any of those. Like he's basically regressing because he's probably depressed. But she's deciding to take the stance of having a conversation with him. That's a little heated. And she says to him, there are things a regular 23-year-old in the normal world, um, could do. But he says, but I'm not a normal 23-year-old who was raised in the normal world. I was born in the Amish. And that's the thing, like, you act like you want to have this Amish good old boy as your husband, but yet you still compare him to the men in the quote unquote English world. They just are not the same. They're two different people. And again, like one of y'all had to apply for this. I'm going to assume it was probably you, Lindsay. And have you never seen Breaking Amish, Return to Amish, or any Amish show? Hell, I mean, Handmaid's Tale is a little different, but just the repressiveness of it, right? Have you, like, have you not seen what life is like for people in different worlds and different societies? You can't compare one to another because no matter how many comparisons you try to put forth, they're irrelevant. But the one thing that she did say that I kind of have to be on her side about here, that I feel like even in the Amish, this wouldn't have been allowed. My guy is drawing on the wall as if he's a toddler. That's, yeah, no. And he kind of makes an excuse for doing it, which is like there are no excuses for doing something like that. Again, I don't think that is something that would have been okay in the Amish. So what are you talking about here? And she says like um her biggest fear is him not being there for their baby. And she's like, she's like, you can barely take care of yourself. And again, potentially sure. he can't take care of himself in the ways that you think he can't take care of himself. Of course, I wonder if those standards of taking care of himself are um would be different in the Amish. But again, like I've said, we've seen many men come out of the Amish and seem to know how to at least take care of themselves and at least can pick up the things that they're supposed to do. But it would be very interesting, for example, for people who have watched Breaking Amish, Return to Amish, like Jeremiah, was he like this? Was it maybe because he was older that, he kind of acquire things a little differently? Even Abe, it would have been interesting to know if, like, he kind of was like this. Like, clearly people come out of the Amish into the English world and actually do take care of themselves, especially their oral hygiene. Like, we saw Rebecca getting new teeth, and it's like, clearly there is a line where people are being able to take care of themselves. His cousin Wilma, I wonder if she's being able to take care of herself in that sense. She has two kids she has to take care of. So I do wonder if it's more he keeps using the Amish as a crutch, or if it's more just about him, and that would be irritating. But it's like, again, though, this is who you picked. You decided to get involved with a 20-something-year-old at your age. You don't have the patience for a man to act that way at that age, or and really and truly any age. And that is a choice you've made, so I have no sympathy for Lindsay at all. Um, she's like, "You don't do things in the house," and he says, like, he does, and she's like, "What do you do?" Again, this is a person and I feel like we're gonna get a lot of context from Elmer in in a couple of episodes, where I think a lot of this comes from, because I do have a huge problem with Lindsay. I'm not particularly a fan of him, but I have a huge problem with her as a person who is fairly close in age to her. You don't get involved with somebody at that age and then complain when they don't do things to your standard. I'm sorry, you just don't. Um, so apparently, like, he did kind of clean up after himself one night or something. Like, she's like, "So you cleaned up after yourself. Do you want a sticker?" And he asks a really good question here. And, from a guy who's 23 years old and can't take care of himself, he sure knows the questions to ask, because he says, "So why did you marry me then?" And she's like, "No, a lot of guys pick up after," or sorry, he says, "A lot of guys don't pick up after themselves." Very true. There are a lot of men who do, and there are a lot of men who don't. I think it just really depends on how you were brought up. I've met men who will not clean after themselves. Hell, I've met women who don't clean up after themselves because they have mommy and daddy who would do it for them. But then you also have the men, we're gonna talk mainly about men here, I guess, but you also have the men who, because they have lived fairly independent lives, that they can take care of themselves. And they can, you know, when you are the only person you're responsible for, and there's no one else here to be responsible for you, that is the swift kick in the ass. But he hasn't had that yet. He hasn't had the chance to live that life. And he went from living at home with mom and dad to being married. And that's how it would have always been, whether he left the Amish or not. That's potentially how it would have gone anyways. If he stayed in the Amish, he would have found a girl and married her and then moved in with her. Um, so he would have gone from, being taken care of to someone else also taking care of him. And that's what he kind of expects, because that's all he knows. And she wants to get mad about that. Ma'am. And I feel like, again, like, I'm not expecting someone to have a lot of education about the Amish, but I feel like I know more about the Amish than she does, and I've never been with someone from the Amish, but I also feel, again, just to keep the same trope from, like, 90 Day, if you're gonna be with someone in a different world, in this case, the Amish, do some research. there has to be somebody out there who can help you kind of figure this out. If you've never watched an episode of Breaking Amish or Return to Amish, they're all on Discovery Plus, ma'am. You could watch them if you'd like to. And that maybe be your education. And understand where you're getting yourself into. You hold on to the things that are so scandalous. And those are the things you remember and talk to him about. But instead, you're not learning about what it means to be an Amish person coming out of the Amish into the English world. To me, I feel like she's a real dummy. Because I'm constantly hearing, like, I wasn't expecting this, yet a simple Google search, I feel, would have helped you. So, yeah, she's like, other guys do take care of themselves. She's like, I mean, look at you. You're drooling on yourself right now. Why is that necessary? Why is digging at him necessary? People sometimes might drool on themselves when they're having an argument. I've seen it. But that doesn't make me then turn around and say, oh, you don't take care of yourself. Like, what? Anyway. Um, she's like, just grow up. And, you act like a child. Well, ma'am, because he is. His brain hasn't even finished developing yet. You're with a man, having a child with a man, married to a man who hasn't even finished a brain development. Hasn't even fully, the frontal lobe is the thing that develops last. His decision-making process. And then you add the fact that he comes from a repressive lifestyle. I'm sorry, like I said, he's not my favorite, but I can't with her. He says, she pushed me into marriage. So actually, he says it here. He says it in this episode. I forgot. So he says that she pushed me into marriage because this is a 35-year-old woman, probably 34 or so, when she met him, woman who feels like this hasn't happened for me yet, so I want to get married because I want to have kids. He says that she pushed when she would get pregnant before her clock was because her clock was ticking. Again, yes, this is a woman who's nearing the 35-year-old mark. As women, we know that we're told 35. That's when, shit goes awry in our fertility. So this is what she is. Obviously, feels like she's staring down the barrel of a gun, I guess, so to speak, when it comes to her fertility. I believe him. I believe him because there's no other reason why a 35-year-old woman would want to be married to a 23-year-old man and then rush into a pregnancy. I believe they were 6 months into their marriage when she got pregnant. And at that point, when we found out that she was pregnant and it was 6 months into their marriage, it was like she was 3 months along or something like that. So she really rushed things. And I think like even that, like they rushed into even getting married in the first place. These two do not know each other. And he, it feels like an older woman, Mrs. Robinson, if you can want to go here, taking advantage of a young boy into like coercing him into this. This is what this feels like. And it's gross. And that's the part that I have such a problem with her because of it. She's disgusting. Because I look at the fact that like he's only a couple years older than my brother. I can't imagine. And if a woman were to actually, if I, bless her heart, unless I really think she's a good person, but bless her heart, if she gets involved with someone who's who's like my brother, my mom's, bless her heart. That's all I can say because my mom is going to show her some problems. Like, it's just not gonna happen. Anyway, so he's like, I wish you would understand how much I sacrificed. Obviously, he sacrificed his home, he sacrificed the life he was living, he sacrificed his family, he sacrificed a lot of different things. Um, and really and truly just to go from one quote unquote prison to the next. Because he was being repressed in the Amish, he's being repressed in his marriage. So yeah. Um, he's like, if that is not enough, then I don't know if I will be enough. And I don't think he will be enough. So, but yes, that's that for them. Let's go into the next couple, which is Muhammad and Ashley. So she says that the family issues are better than it was. Um, and we kind of see them like eating some food, and he says like in Islam they do eat with their hands, but he also mentions that the left hand is used for the bathroom while the right hand is used for food, and you don't mix those up. Then we see Muhammad and Rosie praying, which obviously we know in Islam they pray 5 times a day. And Ashley, I guess, just wants to know the parameters around that because do you have exceptions to the 5 days, a 5 times a day thing? And he's like, so what if you have surgery? And he's like, there's no excuse. You still pray, which it's like, I guess, can you pray in bed though? Do you have to pray? Because obviously they pray on the floor. They use like their mats, right? And they pray on the floor. I would think depending on the surgery you do, like, you can't do that. Because I know, like, for me, again, having to have surgery, and it's laparoscopic surgery, I couldn't bend. I couldn't bend. Both bending. Like, you know what I mean? Bending was you can only stretch out so far to be straight up and down, and you could only bend so far. And it was no bending. Like, you know what I mean? Um And, she's like, "Well, what about sex?" He's like, "Well, then you finish fast so you can pray." And she did not look pleased by that at all. I wouldn't either. No, no, no. Do you have to pray at certain times of the day? Like, I don't know how this, because I've been with Muslim men before in my past, but, I never asked those kinds of questions. I was young. I didn't really, I don't wanna say care to ask, but I just didn't think to ask, I guess. Like, I don't think I've dated a Muslim man since I was in my 20s, like, early 20s, because I would have met my ex-husband at, like, 22, so it would have been, like, prior to that. So, yeah, I think the last guy I dated was in college, and, like, I'm just curious because he'd come over, and I don't know if he was praying when he was with me, and then he would, like, go to school, he was at work, like, I don't know how devout he was. I know he was Muslim, but I don't know how devout he was. Maybe he wasn't praying. I I had friends who were Muslim, and or maybe say a friend that I knew that was Muslim, she definitely did not pray. Sometimes she wouldn't do what she was supposed to do. Um, so yeah, like I don't know. Like, there's certain times of day. Because then if there's certain times of day, then pray first, then you can have sex. Or if there's no time of day, then have sex and pray after. As long as you get those 5 days in a day. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, everyone has what they want. So then we see them getting ready to go to the park, and he wants her to put pants on under her dress because he obviously doesn't want her legs to show. He wants her to wear a hijab, but she says, absolutely not. It's too hot. I'm not wearing one. Um, and he says, if you love me, you will do it. But she says, I shouldn't be doing anything because I love you. I should be doing it because I want to. And that's very true. And he but he kind of says, with Rosie getting older, he wants her to be a good role model to her. And if you have, I guess, an inter-religion, is that the right word, um, household, then, that could pose problems later on. But Rosie could still choose to do as she pleases. Every child growing up in life is going to do what the parents do, but she could choose to do very differently. I don't know if Ashley converting is necessarily going to make or break whatever decision she makes as an adult. But anyways, so we're then at the park, and he says that, she's growing up so fast. And he's obviously saying this because it's going to prompt him into what's coming next. And he says, I'm worried she will copy you on things. Like if you were a hijab, she'll copy you. And she gets it, but it's not, easy to adjust from one religion to the next. And he's afraid. He goes a step forward because I feel like if you left it at that, that is a conversation that can be easy for her to hear you, listen to you, and take your feelings into consideration. He took a step too far by then saying, I'm afraid she'll be like the people in your family. Well, what is that supposed to mean? Now, I would be worried about her sister Jen. That's one person I'm afraid she might mimic. I feel like she definitely was probably siding with Trump during the we're not gonna make this political. If you want to hear anything about that, you can head over to the Next Day podcast. We'll have an episode coming up in a couple months. But yeah, it's problematic. But in the grand scheme of things, you are basically saying your family is bad, even though that's the family she comes from. That is who she is who she is because of her family. So it's kind of a dig. So because he's dug, she digs. And she says, well, since we're on the topic of family, let's talk about Abdul. And he wants to get mad about that. He instantly raises his voice and gets upset and says don't bring my brother into it. And it's but you brought her family into it. So what's good for the goose isn't good for the gander. Good to know. And she's like, if you don't want me to talk about him, don't bring up my family. And then again, I feel like you guys have had a disagreement. We can leave it at that. Let's be done here. But then she takes it a step further and says, I feel like, and she stops and he's like, you feel like what? And she says, I feel like you're being dumb right now. Yikes. I wouldn't say to my partner, I feel like you're being dumb right now, because it does feel it feels degrading. That's not very nice. She could have just not, but she did. And he doesn't quite like that. He feels like he's being disrespected. He feels like, um, you know, he just doesn't feel good right now. And he's like, you need to obey, you need to respect me, which again, with the word obey. And she's like, those words make her not want to convert. If you're going to constantly use these words that she shivers at, then why keep using them? Because that does not endear her to the religion. That wouldn't endear anybody if anybody used words like that, it wouldn't endear them to that religion at all. And it's a shame because I feel like we've seen many people on these shows who are Muslim, and they make the religion look amazing. And then you have Mohammed, and I feel like he really doesn't make the religion look at all appealing. And I can understand from her perspective, with that in mind, that you wouldn't want to be a part of this religion at all. And he has to take accountability and ownership with that you're part of the problem as to why she does not want to be a part of this religion. But he says, if she's not Muslim, she wouldn't be a good wife. Great. Great. Let's just, say you would suck because you're not Muslim. That that also feels like a bit of a slap to the face. I wouldn't like that. But that's it for Ashley and Mohammed. Let's move on to Laurie and Eli. So they are prepared. Okay, I'm hoping I'm going to get these words right, guys, so bear with me. They are preparing for Shabbat, which is the day of rest. You can't do any work or labor. So that includes, and now this sounds absolutely amazing. I think I could do this. You don't cook, you don't clean, you don't drive, you're not on electronics. It's basically supposed to be like a gift from God to do nothing. Lights, you can't have any lights on. There's certain lights you can leave on, but you can't leave certain lights on, which that would include like we see them going around turning off lights and stuff. They can't turn on the light in the refrigerator. They have to actually like hold the little piece down that would turn the fridge on. They have to hold it down with a piece of tape so it doesn't turn on. There was something else they did that with as well, and they had to turn it off as well. He says like you can use lights, but like if they're on like a timer. So if they're on a timer, they'll turn on by themselves, they'll turn off by themselves. Like the motion of you flicking a light on, that's doing work, that's against Shabbat. So the other thing you can't do is you can't even rip toilet paper because that is seen as work. So what they have to do is they have to prepare for Shabbat, and part of the preparation is ripping off squares of toilet paper to use. And well, if you run out of toilet paper before Shabbat's done, you better have a bidet because you can't do anything else. But isn't the work of turning on the bidet also work? Isn't the motion of flushing the toilet also work? I'm being serious. Like I have questions because I feel like he says you can't literally do anything except have sex. You can have sex on Shabbat. On the night of Shabbat, you can fuck. That you can do. Um, because it's work. You're doing stuff, hopefully. But yes, okay, you can do that. But like the you can't do things, but you can flush the toilet. Like, what if you have like your period as a woman? Like, it's the motion of me pulling out a tampon or taking off a pad, changing that. Isn't that considered work as well? Or can you not partake in Shabbat if you're on your period? Kind of similarly to like in Islam, if you're on your period, you can't pray or do wudu, you can't do those things. So I'm just curious. I have a lot of questions. Someone who's Orthodox Jew, please tell me. Or just Jewish at all, and you do this, like you do Shabbat. I have questions. Help. I'm really curious. And honestly, like that's genuine curiosity because I actually had family members and like they're now dead, but we um we had Jewish family members on my mom's dad's side of the family. So I'm definitely interested in all of this because like this is so interesting to me. I just have questions. Anyway, so with that in mind though, her mom and her sister are coming to they're doing like a housewarming. I think this is when they do the housewarming, or maybe not. Maybe this wasn't the housewarming. It was the next episode they do the housewarming. But her mom, and her sister from Boston's where she's from, right, are coming, and because they haven't seen her. Problem is, she can't go pick them up at the airport because you can't drive, so they probably have to Uber. um So this is the first time that she's going to be seeing them since she decided to convert. So we see Laurie's mom and her sister Jen come in. They're here. Her sister Ariella, sorry, not Ariella, God, Angela is here as well. Some friends and Eli's cousin. Oh, so this is it. This is the housewarming. So, um, Eli's cousin Rosalie. This is gonna be fun, guys. actually his first cousin. She does not live as in an Orthodox lifestyle, as she is actually married to a Muslim man. And neither one has converted to either's religion, and they don't plan to. They have chosen to live with two religions in their household. And she's pregnant. So they're planning to raise their child with both faiths. So basically, we asked now, like, when's the converting going to be happening? We don't know yet because we're waiting on Rabbi to schedule the test that she has to do. Her family is not necessarily agreeing with everything that she's doing. She is grown though, but her mom does worry about, the drastic rules in Judaism, how that's going to affect their relationship. And his cousin says, listen, I'm the black sheep of the family. And she's like, I feel like if you love someone, you love them for who they are. You shouldn't have to like change for them. And, you know, she kind of says like there would potentially be some resentment. And she's like, it's 2023. Like, what are we still doing here? She's like, if you believe, or he says, if you believe two things, your kids will be just so confused and have no identity. That's bullshit. And you actually saw her sister roll her eyes because it's like, that makes no sense. Your child could still learn one religion and still come out and decide, I don't believe in that anymore. I'm going to do this instead. Like that's absolute crap. Now, it is confusing for me too to kind of decide which religion I would do or whatever. I do believe you have to agree on one religion to raise your kids as. I believe that personally, but whatever works for you, works for you. And if this works for you, then fine. There is a lot of similarities between both of these religions. One that pops in my head right now is the amount of times you pray. That's one similarity between these religions. And your child could still decide to come out of that and be like, I believe in one thing more than the other. And that's okay. So I don't agree with what Eli said here. I feel like that's just his excuse for making sure Laurie still continues on with this conversion process. Like it's bull. So her sister says like, is there something else going on here? And this is like in the moment. And they asked Laurie, if you do get divorced, will you remain Jewish? Well, in all intents and purposes, yes, because she has converted. So she is now Jewish. She is no longer Catholic. But the question I think that needs to be asked here is, are you still going to, be a Jewish in everything that means? Or are you going to go back and partake in the Catholic holidays, the Catholic traditions, the Catholic rituals? Like, are you going to go back and do that? That's the question. And him saying that, oh, our kids are going to be Jewish, that's neither here nor there, my guy. That's neither here nor there. If you two do decide to get divorced when you have kids and she decides that she doesn't want to do this anymore, you can't stop her. And you can't stop that your kids could potentially learn that. Because guess what? She has a right to have her kids on Christmas as you have your right to have your kids on Hanukkah. You can't stop that. So that's what I mean. It's like, yeah, I do believe, again, that someone shouldn't convert to any religion for anyone else. If you're doing it for you. Because then when the divorce happens, you're still going to believe in that. You're still going to do what you would do either way in that religion. Kind of like Omar and Avery. Avery, if her and Omar were to, they're perfectly fine, guys, but if they were to get a divorce, Avery is still going to be Muslim because she did that for her. She converted for her. So that's an example of someone who converted for themselves and not for the person that they're with. Like, you think Nicole and Mahmoud is still doing the Islam? No, no, she ain't. Just as an example. So he also says, like, even if they are divorced, there are certain things that will still happen because she is Jewish. For example, one of those things are she would be buried in a Jewish cemetery. And you're like, oh no. And the thing is her, I think it was her sister says, so you won't be buried next to dad and grandma. And she says, no. And the thing that also, like, I knew in Judaism that hell is not something that is they believe in. I didn't realize about heaven, but that is it. They do not believe in heaven or hell. So she's having this realization of, well, if I'm now going to be converted, I'm going to be Jewish, and I'm not supposed to believe in an afterlife, a heaven or a hell, then that means that I won't be with my dad when I die. That's heartbreaking to kind of have that realization because she's probably held on since the day her dad passed away that he may be gone now, but I'll see him again. And to kind of be like, but I'm converting into a religion that doesn't believe in that anymore. So then that means I don't get to see him then. I think in whatever you believe in, now as a person who was raised in the Catholic religion, I do believe in a heaven. At the very least, I believe in a hell, give or take. I believe I believe in what I believe in when it comes to the afterlife. I believe that they're there. But I can also think that for people who don't believe in what I believe in, I'm still going to see you up there in whatever form that is. I do believe we all end up somewhere, wherever that somewhere is. And it doesn't matter what your religion is. And I think that kind of all goes back to the all path leads to God, whatever God means to you. So yeah, I feel horrible for her in this moment to have this realization, but I think whatever comes after life, you're gonna see your dad again, whatever that means. Um, so Eli basically kind of says like, "Oh yeah, my cousin's opinion, it sucks and it's disrespectful." It's like, okay, calm down. It's fine. You're okay. Anyway, that's basically it for Eli and Laurie. Let's move on to our last couple for this episode, though this will be quick, is Lensa and Kris. So she tells him about the anointing. So it's been a minute, guys. If you remember the anointing of the oil, which was, whoa. She's like, we don't have people in my religion who's doing quote unquote witchcraft. We got prayer and we got doctors. Love that. We do too. Don't you worry. Kris does say and is in the moment that he felt like he crossed the line with doing this. But to her, he says, well, I don't think he meant any harm. Did you want to say maybe the quiet part out loud? Like, what? And he's like, is this kind of showing that he cares for her? He cares for her, but he also doesn't respect her at the same time. Do you understand that? But she believes that she betrayed her religion, and I would probably feel the same way. She tells him that I want you to be Muslim. Like, she's kind of tired of this. She's tired of all of this from his family and everything. And he does say, my parents are important to me. I do have to kind of look at the bigger picture if I do convert. like his community could look kind of bad on him because he is a Pentecostal preacher who preaches the word of God. And how is it going to look for the former preacher's son converting to Islam? It's going to look bad. And I do understand where he's coming from with that, but it's also not his problem to deal with. It just isn't. If he decides that he wants to convert and he's doing that for all of the right reasons, then that's your decision. He says that let's just pump the brakes a minute. I can't just say, okay, I'm ready. And she says, okay, but I just want to kind of see more of an effort of you learning about Islam. At least that can kind of give her the reassurance I think she wants. But that is it for this episode. We are going to take a break here. We are going to do the second episode, and we'll be back in just a minute. And I am back. So let's jump into the seventh episode, which is You Give a Band Name. Okay. Laurie and Eli are first. So we are in a kosher market. They are preparing to do the first day of, I think it's Seder, which is the first 2 days of Passover. They are not allowed to have any yeast, barley, wheat, none of that. And she just wishes she could eat some lobster or some, I think she said fried clams. I don't eat this stuff either. Shrimp. And he's like, listen, I didn't grow up eating bottom feeders. That gives me vibes of freaking, okay, who remembers Jaw? Of Winter and Jaw? And that's because, again, I'm listening back to Reality Gaze that's covering Family Chantel, and I completely forgot that guy, that dummy, asshole, basically referred to the Family Chantel as bottom feeders. If you eat like a bottom feeder, you think like a bottom feeder. Ass. Anyway. So he's not doing that though, but he's like, I don't eat like a bottom feeder, so whatever. Um then her phone starts ringing. And y'all, it's Rabbi Block. And she goes and she talks to him, and then she comes back and she's like, well, I'm having the test soon. Mazel tov. And then we start singing the Mazel tov, Mazel tov. I don't know what song. I don't think that's the right song that they were singing, but that's the only one that's in my head right now. So yeah, they were singing the song, and the store guy is singing, and we're all singing. Man, you sing the Mazel Tov song because that's a song of celebration for things, and this is a celebration. But Laurie does say, like, I feel this is kind of premature because I have to pass the test. I have to study. And if I don't pass, I don't convert, which means my relationship with Eli is over. So she's stressing. In the next scene, they are getting ready for the Seder, which again, we've talked about is to kind of break it down. This is actually the celebration of when the Jews left Egypt. Yeah. Her sister Angela shows up, and Laurie does have a surprise for her. But before we kind of see that surprise, Angela's like looking at the table. She's like, "Does they look good?" And she's like, "I'm a little thrown by the paper plates. Who gives a shit? They're paper plates. They're apparently not supposed to use, like, they have to use like different kosher plates. That's, I guess, like super kosher. I don't know. On the day, like, it has to be separate on these 2 days versus the rest of Passover. So that's why they use the paper plates. And plus, you're going to throw them out afterwards. Who cares? Just eat your food. Her sister actually really bugs me, and I have more that I'm going to be saying in a minute. She really bugs me. But let's get to it. So she decides to show Angela what she has hiding in her room, which is a bag from the wig fairy, which holds a wig in the bag. She's had some time to think about everything, and she's a little bit better with the idea of wearing the wig. And not only that, She actually found a wig that's very close to her hair, so that makes her feel a little bit better with having to wear one. And Angela's like, well, if it's so close to your hair, like, why do you have to wear it? And she's like, because it's about covering her hair. As we know, her hair is supposed to be for her husband. And she's like, but it's still hair. Like, it's still someone's hair, but it's not her hair. It's a wig. Ma'am, do you not understand? It's not actually a very hard concept. And again, I think it could be, I don't want to say worse, but she may not even, if she was converted to a different religion, she would even have that. Like, has she not heard of, I mean, listen, I hadn't heard about in Orthodox Judaism, this is what you do. I had never heard this before, so this was new for me. But people covering their hair at all is not a new thing. Have you never seen a Muslim person before who wears the hijab or whatever? Like, have you never heard of this before? You act like this is a novelty. Like, I'm just so confused. It's still someone's hair, but it's not her hair. Like, I just don't like stupid. That's my biggest thing. I don't like stupid. I don't like hearing someone be ignorant unnecessarily. I don't like that. And she sounded so dumb. That's the part that I can't. And, and, but she's like, but like, I've seen her hair. And like, I hope that I can still see her hair, you know, after she's married because I'm her sister. But you might not be allowed to see her hair. And get over it. Like, what is this fascination of the hair for people? Like, I would hope someone doesn't care that much about whether or not I'm showing my hair or not. Like, who cares? Let it go. So dumb. Anyway, then she's like, just don't tell mom. She's really having a tough time. Like, she said to me that she feels like she's losing a daughter. She thinks like when you have kids, like, will I be able to see them or will be living a separate life? She just needs to hear that, like, that's not gonna happen. But don't tell her that I told you. So how's she supposed to tell her then? How's she supposed to reassure her mom that everything's fine? What? I'm so confused. She just feels like disconnected. And I understand her feeling all of those things. I don't want to. Like, I'm not I'm irritated by her sister. I'm not irritated by her mom. I do understand there's a lot of different changes. How's that gonna work? I hear all of that, and I respect all of that. I just don't think that should be coming from her sister. I think that should be coming from her mom. Her mom has a mouth. Her mom can have this conversation with her and should be able to have that conversation with her. Why do you, Angela, need to tell her this? See, I feel like we should just be rid of people named Angela on the shows, on TLC, because the Angelas on TLC is just not great. Anyway, next we have Kris and Lensa. Now, this is where my irritation will set in with Lensa. Let's get into it. Kris is saying goodbye to his parents because he is now heading to Grand Rapids, but he does have to tell them something pretty big. And he tells them, listen, I think I am going to be converting to Islam. And his mom's like, oh. And his dad is like, that's a hard pill to swallow. It hurt. It really do. It don't make me feel good. And he's like, let's make out one more time with his daddy here, okay? This is great. We taught you about the Bible and Jesus. It hurt. Some things you just don't tell, you don't make no one change about you. You're raised in holiness. You went to church on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then he's like, you're gonna change into a Muslim? A Muslim, my God. It's like, it bothers me. that he's leaving a good foundation. It hurt. Let me tell you something. God, this bothers me. God, you don't go against Jesus. And Kris says, but he died for our sins, so nobody's going to go to hell. He's like, but you know why there is a hell for people like you. This man literally just said because of heathens like you or heathens like your girlfriend, that's why we have hell. And this is why I have a problem with Christianity. There you go. I am a Christian, but I ain't going around here being like, oh, you going to hell. Like, I'm not doing that. That's so wrong. Anyway, let's continue. He's like, nobody is going into God's kingdom that didn't go through Jesus Christ. So anyone who's going through Allah, you're going to hell. Okay? Allah that's gone through one of the gods in Hinduism, you're going to hell. That's basically what his God is saying here. And it's like, do you not know a single Hindu, a single Islamic person, a single Buddhist person? You don't know a person who thinks differently than you and you think they're going to hell? God did not. This is the problem I have. It is not up to humans to judge what happens with people. It is not our right to judge people in anything that they do. There's one person who judges. That's God. And sometimes we encounter people in Christianity and all sects of Christianity who forget that. His dad's one of those people. He's funny, but this wasn't funny. And it was triggering because I've had people in my family, like I've said this before, who I feel would think the same. Not great. So he says this isn't about preaching, but about falling in love with someone who has opened my eyes to a new way of life. Okay. Then his dad asks a very, very good question. He says, have you talked to your parents? No, he hasn't. And he never will. He's like, don't you think that is a little out of order? You know, in her culture, there is no such thing as a boyfriend, he explains. And he's like, she does want me to be a part of her family. And his dad's like, no, she don't. No, she doesn't. His dad is absolutely correct. No, she doesn't. And he says, the handwriting's on the wall. Not just the writings on the wall, but the handwriting. Your cursive writing is on the wall. So he he does think that her family is going to reject him. Mhm. His dad believes that if she has to choose between Kris or her parents, 1,000% she's going to pick her parents. Uh-huh. Let's wait for it. Let's get to it, guys, because we're getting into it now. He is on the way to Grand Rapids, and she calls him while he's on the way. He's about 5 hours away at that point. But finally, he does get there. And this is supposed to be a happy moment for Lensa, but it's not a great moment for Lensa. And here's why. She told her parents about Kris. And she said, Mom, Dad, he wants to meet you. And they said, well, that ain't happening. We don't know this guy. You don't know this guy. And they brought up her past, apparently, for which my guy is like, I feel like I could take some ownership on that because you hooked her up with these two people where it didn't quite work out with them. And you want to blame her? Like, okay. And she basically said like she didn't want to have a soft conversation anymore. She was done with it. She says they just want to control me. But at this point, Kris is worried because all he can hear in his head now is his father's words a few minutes ago that we just talked about, saying that they will not accept him. Yeah? Well, let's watch the self-sabotage in motion, because not only did your dad tell you that, but your dad also said to us, the audience, the second half of that, which is she's going to choose her family over him. So let's watch the self-sabotage go into motion, because 12 hours later, Lensa and Kris are having a little bit of an argument. Something about him texting some girl who messaged him and he blocked her. There's a lot of yelling. There's a lot of cussing. There's a lot going on, but we are going to kind of figure out here what's going on. She says, listen, I left at that apartment. I think he thought that I had left. I went back into the apartment. I'm looking over his shoulder. I see him on his phone and he's texting some women. And yeah. And Kris shows the producer, although we don't see it, but he shows the producer what exactly she's getting mad about. And while he's doing it, she's like, you're a thought, you're this, you're that. And she's going off. And he basically, this girl wrote him, DM'd him. He said to the girl, I have a girlfriend, and then blocked her. And she is screaming in his face, and he's getting, like, he's done with it. He's like, get out of my face. She's like, what do you mean get out of my face? And she's like going after him. It's like, okay, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. You're a grown-ass woman with a kid. And you're carrying on because some girl messaged him and he did the thing that I think all women want to know their mans are doing by saying, I have a girlfriend. Block? What do you mean? I have a story. I literally just got a message from a random guy that I must have talked to years back who messaged me, listen, y'all, messaged me just saying, hey, like I'm supposed to know you or something. And my first response back to him was, do I know you? And he resorted to sending me pictures that I sent him. And I was like, that doesn't help me. And whenever he eventually tried telling me who he was, and I'm like, I don't remember you because I don't know when last I talked to you. This easily could have been like 7 years ago. I don't know who you are. I am in a relationship. Leave me alone. Done. I told my boyfriend about it because I wasn't sure if this was someone maybe from his past trying to screw with me or what. No clue. And he handled it well. He didn't come at me being like, oh, you're talking to him and why you talking to him and all of this and acting like a crazy person. No one does that. And I would never do that. Like if some random woman is texting my man, if you are engaging with her more so than just that, then we got a problem. But if you're just telling her, listen, not interested, I have a girlfriend, and you block, there are crazy, weird robots on Instagram. There are women who are thirsty as hell on Instagram. They even add women. Like I've had those people, whether they're bots or real, I don't know, contact me on Instagram and I just block them. Like that could have been all this was. And she's freaking out because of it. This isn't about her being a jealous person because he says like she could be a jealous person. This is about the fact that she has to self-sabotage because mom and dad aren't about it. This is all this is. This is all this is. She's found her excuse for getting out of this relationship. Anyway. So, Ashley and Mohammed. So things have been a little tense between them since the fight in the park. They're at the mosque right now because they're going to be having some people kind of help them through, like basically doing like a counseling session. And we see him do wudu, and he explains the wudu, which we kind of know from watching other episodes of this channel. But she is obviously not able to do wudu because she is on her period. And we also know what we know about how they view us as impure when we're on our periods because we're at our dirtiest. Although period blood is one of the cleanest forms of blood, but that's neither here nor there. We see them sitting with the counselors, and he says, she is stubborn. No, I'm not. But she says that she's just struggling with the modesty aspect of things. And the guy counselor says the modesty is from Allah, it's not from him. So, like, maybe try to, I guess, separate from the fact that he isn't telling you to be modest. It's Allah from through him telling you to be modest. So maybe think of it from that perspective, which, is a good way for her to help kind of work her way through that. And and she said, well, he also loves to use like the words like obey, all that. And and he says, well, you don't obey. And he gets upset if she will even leave the house because he feels like she should listen to him. And if he doesn't want her leaving the house at night, which I wouldn't want to leave the house at night, but he also says sometimes I don't even want her to leave the house at all. That is problematic on his part. Why can't she leave if she wants to leave? She should be allowed to leave if she wants to. Why? She's not a prisoner in her own home. Um, the man again says, listen, you're not translating right. Because he kind of talked about the Quran and obey and everything. Because you're not translating it right. Obey means, to listen, you know? Obeying is meant more for a slave or an animal. She's not your slave. She's your life partner. And yeah, this is kind of again where he says like using the word listen as a proper word to use, listen to your husband. And I mean, maybe for some that might sound like semantics, but I think using the word listen, like try listening to me, please, or whatever, like it sounds a little better than using the word obey. I mean, I'm not going to obey nor listen. That's, but again, I'm not with a Muslim man, but it does sound better than obey. And she said that does sound better. And we kind of see, though, he hasn't really taken much from this because he's still doubling down on the word obey in the moment. She's like, so you learn nothing then. But she says that she's happy that she went, but she's still thinking about the converting. This is not going to be an easy decision for her to make, which is understandable. And, it's just something she's learned all her life is Catholicism. So we shall see what happens. But that is it for them. Let's move on to our final couple of this episode, which was Elmer and Lindsay. So we're getting ready for the gender reveal party, and their theme is wheels or heels. So you're trying to tell me that if it's a girl, she doesn't want to, she won't have wheels, or if it's a boy, maybe he'll want to wear heels. Like, what is this? This is why I can't with gender reveals. I mean, listen, I'm not going to be the person who does a gender reveal. I don't care. It's not even so much about like in terms of the gender itself. Like, I know some people think that just let the child choose and all that. My child can still choose as they're older if they want to identify as a he, her, or they. That doesn't matter here nor there to me. But I think as long I'm, the baby, scientifically speaking, it's either gonna be a girl or a boy. So I'm not so much about that, but I'm perfectly fine with my child choosing as they get older what they want to identify as. That's not the issue for me. It's just the whole gender reveal thing is so much that I'm just like, why can't you just tell people I'm having a boy or I'm having a girl? I just, I know. I will never be a person who does a gender reveal. I do not care for them. I don't care for them. I'm more of a person, like, if you want to do like a cute thing, like, you know, I've had friends who have done videos and sent it to people. Like, maybe that's more something I would do. But, you know, doing an actual gender reveal party, it's just I don't understand it. But anyways, that's me. Don't worry. That's how I feel. So these themes and whatever, I'm just like, oh God. Anyway, so he comes with dolls that Wilma made, which obviously have no faces on them because vanity. And she's like, well, that's so weird. Like they don't have any faces. Can I draw faces on them? And he explains again about the vanity. And she says, again in the moment, and she says, but it's not like they're like slutty dolls or anything. No, ma'am. Do you not understand? They don't do anything that has to do with vanity. No makeup, no cameras, no mirrors, no any of that, because it's all about vanity, and that's what that's about. It's supposed to be about God, not about your vanity. Like, that's why they don't put faces on dolls, because it's vanity. You know, I don't know. Is she fine? Is she okay? Does she not understand? Anyways, so it's now the night of the gender reveal. They rented out a brewery. A woman who can't drink rented out a brewery. But anyways, she thinks it's a girl, so she's wearing pink, and he thinks it's a boy, so he's wearing blue. We sit with her family for a bit. We have her dad, who's Dave, her mom, who's Brenda, and her grandma as well. I didn't catch her name. They said that they all love Elmer like a son. He's our family. And it's really sad for what's about to happen in the next episode. But Dad tells Elmer, of course, we are here for her, but we are also here for you. And he says it does suck that his family is not here, and he does get emotional thinking about that. But then they have like a trash can. They have a friggin' trash can in the middle of the place here that they're gonna lift up, and there's balloons in the trash can. So when they open the trash can, pink balloons come out, so it is a girl. And he says that she is going to just have him wrapped around her little finger, because he's going to be a daddy's girl. But that's basically it for this episode. Again, we are going to do the final episode in its own episode. That is the plan. I'm hoping that I can get this one out to you. I'm recording this on a Thursday, so I'm hoping I can get that out to you tonight, and then the final episode tomorrow morning. Otherwise, it'll be, both of these will come out Friday. The next episode that you're going to get after these two is going to be B90. I'm working on B90 now. So we're going to do the first episode of B90, and then we'll squeeze it in there like a hamburger with toe. So we'll do, so we can get through that. But that is it for this episode. So if you like what you heard, please rate, review the podcast on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also, don't forget that you can also share us with everyone in your life if you really love this. And I do want to read those reviews. I'm definitely getting 5-star ratings, but I want to read those reviews. So send me those reviews and I will read those 4 and 5-star reviews on the podcast. Also, we're on every one of your favorite podcast apps. Every one of them, including, you can find us on YouTube at Reality Tea Times 2. If you want to connect with us, you can do so by going to either Facebook or Instagram at Reality Tea Times 2. You can also find us on Twitter, TikTok, Reddit at Reality Tea Times 2 Pod. We also have our email, which is at realityteatimes2 at hotmail.com. Definitely want to hear from you guys. And we also have our new website where you can listen to all of these episodes. You can review the podcast on there as well. You can connect with me in any way, all the stuff. It's all there, and you can find me there at www.realityteatimes2, all spelled out, .podpage.io. It's there. And don't forget, I also have my other podcast with my friend Mikkel, Next Take Podcast, where we talk about all kinds of different topics. But you can find us on any of your favorite podcast apps over there as well. Or you can also go to YouTube, and you go to Next Take Podcast, as well as our website, which is solo.to/Next Take Podcast. So yeah, there's was that, and that's basically that. And again, don't forget, if all of this information is overwhelming, we do have all of the links, everything in our show notes. But that is it for now, guys. Thanks. Bye.